A bit more about the syntax of React, since we had some trouble like last class together. So I just created a new, I am creating a new repository on GitHub. I will just share with you at the end of that recording. So that's a way that I use to create projects. So here I'm just in a folder. When I have the component-based design repository, then I will just clone my empty repository. By doing that, why actually I'm doing this? Just because I have now the the HYF React basic example, and it's basically open. Yeah, it's open here, and it's already linked to GitHub. So that's why I did it that way. But it's an empty repository. So that what I would love to do here, it's basically the thing we learned together, npx create React app, and what I will do as a name, since I am in the repository that I want, I will just put a dot so that it will create the app, all the folder inside these existing folders that I am in. So here just telling me that if I want to proceed like that, it's completely fine. I'm just installing the package because it's the first time I'm running on that specific computer. So let's wait a little bit. So I will try to cover just the syntax and maybe some reminder about what we learned last class, so that you can watch that video again and maybe try to do on your own. And I hope that you will get that more easy for the next class, and then we can move ahead on new topics from React, because you will see there are many things. I also invite you to always try to look at the documentation when you're doing that. So feel free to go to the doc, look from some concepts. You can just borrow it. You have some example. You also have a learn React, which is basically have a kind of complex. It's not complex, but it's like a complete tutorial about like a game, tic-tac-toe or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but feel free to do it. All right, so you remember the structure folder that we had together? So same thing, like I will also like just delete what I don't need. So the test, the logo, the vital I don't need, and the setup test I don't need anymore as well. Either than here, I will just keep the single div for now. So I don't need a logo and I don't need a CSS as well, at least for that example. And since we saw each other, another way of, I will put it a little bit bigger, maybe not that much. But then you can keep that so that you follow the structure as well. Another way, since it's a function, I will always use another syntax. So I will always, instead of doing function like that, I will use the arrow function. So putting a constant that I will call app, which is equal to an arrow function. So it's exactly the same thing. And then I will look into the detail after. Then I won't export the default. I will just export the single function like that. So I will try to always keep these consistencies. I will also change the return after. I can also do it here, but I will do it just after by explaining exactly the concept. So I remove all of that CSS that I don't need anymore, and here I can keep that one. It's not really important. And well, here I don't want a strict mode because it's not important to me right now. Let's not use what we don't really want to take time into there. And you remember this, it's also nice, especially for you, to separate everything. So you can create another constant, which is the target, and you put it there so that you can understand more easily what is each of that. And what is also cool is that you can directly just console log it. So by just logging what is the target, I usually put always a string and then what I want to log, so that I have a kind of I would say like because if I have many console logs, at least I know which one corresponding to what. Sorry, so that's the reason why I'm doing that. So you can analyze that, take your time to do it. So again, here I don't use the React other thing I did, so I can remove the React here because it's not needed. So we'll try again to keep the code as clean as possible and as short as possible. And inside the public repository, I don't need the favicon, to be honest. So in the index HTML, I don't have the favicon anymore. Then those I don't need to put anything here. Actually, nothing from here. I just can remove everything. So I will just keep the minimal here, and then all that I can also remove. Again, to keep it very short. That one is not mandatory, but it's great so that if you don't have JavaScript on your browser, you will see that, and that will make sense. All right, so that's it. I also have logos here that I will remove. On the manifest, I don't care, and the robo, I don't care as well. So I really get the simple thing ever. Only 3 files. The index, which is the connection, if you remember, with your DOM and the thing. I will remove that for now as well. Then the index with CSS with some things here, whatever. And then the app, which is really small, and I can also put hello world in here. So that's mostly it. I will just remember that I had an extension here that I don't want to put the history. That's just to me. You won't have that, but I will have it. So to ignore that folder, I will just say, just ignore history like that. I just, of course, need to write it properly. And you see here, it's not green anymore, so it won't take that into account. So basically, when I have that now, I can just say that I will add everything into my next commit. Then I will commit all these changes, which is the cleanup of the code, basically, with a message like just setup or init. It's more like init create React app minimal like that. All right, and then I git push. All right. So since you're doing command line, I also use command line so that you're not sick. So here on my repository that I will share, now if I refresh it, I will see correctly the minimal file I have. All right. So all of that. Oh yeah, I also forgot one thing inside here is to remove that. Again, it's not mandatory, but I really prefer to keep it short to not be distracted about things. And to really make that applying, since it's dependencies, it's already installed in my node module, and also take care in package.log that we don't really need to going through for now. I will just make an npm e, like it's npm install, it's exactly the same thing. You see that it removed a lot of packages, and that's why I did. So it makes some change into the package JSON as well, and basically it removed a lot of things. It's basically all the sub dependencies that I used to have for the testing library that I don't need anymore. So we'll just do a commit for that. So I add everything. I'm saying that this is quickly like clean up useless dependencies. That's it, and then I can push as well if I want. All right, so what I would love to emphasize a little bit here is the syntax. So remember, it's also cool to get consistency by always having a file here, which is a component, a single component, because you can for sure use many components, and I will do that right now in a single file, but it is considered as a wrong practice. And the other thing is like also by consistency, just use JS6. It's also better so that you recognize directly that what is this file about. So even though we have one function over here, what we can decide also in here for sure. Oh, actually, something is not working here, and I don't even launch the app, but you can maybe guess it is because what I changed before is I changing these function which were exported by default. Now it's basically exported as a name function, so it's one specific function that is exporting, and it's not default one big export. So that here I cannot import one thing from that folder. I need to specify exactly what I need. If I am checking that, and basically what I will do is just running that application so that it will appear here, and then we will be able to see what happened. So you see, of course, it's crashing, but what I would love to see, if you want it, it's here. All right, so basically element tab is invalid. So it's the thing we just had before all together during the class, is that this is not a component. Why? Let's have a look. I don't know if it will be, if it will allow me, let's just do that, or let's do app. I don't know if it will allow me to log it before crashing, to be honest. I will have a look. Yeah, it does. So you see it's undefined, so I cannot really check it out. But basically, I need to put brackets around. You know that the color here changing because you recognize it's a function. So now it's working, and you can see here it's a function. Why it's important to make some logs like that is that you can realize it's a function, right? I don't know if you know as well the type of in JavaScript, the keyword. It will not logging exactly the content, but it would log the type of that element, which is a variable containing something. So if it's a function, it should log function. And if I'm coming here, see it's a function. So you can know by yourself without asking anyone that it's a function just by logging that. So try to do it as much as you can. Explore as much as you can. Make some logs for the target, for the root, and then you will understand a lot of things by yourself. Example, I am just logging here the root, all right? And you know that now it makes sense that I put some stuff in here so that in the log you can see app and root, and you know which one is corresponding to one. You see that the root, that actually element, which is React create root methods that are executed with receiving one specific parameters that will return something. I'll put the value inside root. A root is basically apparently an object, which is React DOM root. It's a class actually in JavaScript that is written by the library. And you see there are a lot of things inside. And what you can maybe search for is the create root, the render, because we just call it just after. So if we scroll down a little bit, we don't find any render here, but that's also possible because sometimes you just inherit some method from the parent, and well, it's actually here. And you can find here the render, which is a function, you see? And what is taking as a parameter, it's children. And you remember children, it's like something specific from React. So basically this will render something. It's a method that you just see here. It's waiting for children. Oops, I cannot select it, but it's that one. Yeah, I can here. All right. So this is basically what you can understand, that app will be the children of the root rendering, which is basically plugging all your React application inside the main target, which is the element get by ID, where the RD is equal to root. All right, so you won't really touch that too much, but maybe later in the future. So what is important for you to know now, it's more the syntax of it. So here, what is important to understand is that first, the app you have here, it's JS6, right? We already learned about it. What you need to understand is that app, it's exactly the same thing if you were just taking that app like that and then executing it like that. Why? Because it is a function. You know it's a function because you import app from app, and if you go to look, you see that app, it's a function. So you can definitely do that. You won't for sure. You won't, because React will allow you to work in JS6, which is much better than doing like that, because even like that, you need to understand exactly how you can pass parameters and stuff. You don't need to take care when it's JS6, you're writing that like HTML. But keep in your mind that when you are doing these, you are executing a function. That's important to understand, because if you are having a variable, having like some content, and the content is basically a function that you are executing, like something like that, you should understand that JavaScript will first execute the function, get the return value of it, and then put the return value inside A. So if that function is basically something like that, an old function, and I also need to be careful like that, and then I returning like true, It means that it will replace that content by true, because it's the returning value of the function, and then it will put that value inside A. So A will be equal to true. All right, so that's exactly what you need to understand about function, and it's the same thing when you see it here. You are executing a function. I'm sorry. So now should be clear. You can go ahead and understand the next part, which is having that component, which is a function that will be executed by React. Then you can use this. This is look like JavaScript, HTML again, but even though it also a function, it's always a function, so that the return value of that function will be used to be like the final rendering, more or less, because it's not really the final. Why is not? You remember, class name will be changed as class. So if you open it here, you see it's class app and not class name, and you remember why. Also, maybe it's a little bit small. I will put it a little bit bigger. Come on, yeah. All right. And then you have the other word because that's what it is. So basically what you want to understand here now, it's different. It's like the different way of having syntax, okay? Here it's a variable. The variable contains a function, okay? I can remove the function. I can, before, create another function, that another variable that I call A. I put a function inside, and then I'm doing this. This is exactly the same. I'm just putting a function somewhere else, and then I'm assigning here. There's no sense to do that, but I'm doing it just to show you that you can. It's really interesting that you should not just be stuck about the like writing everything all the time like you were seeing on a video or we show you. Just look at the syntax. This is a function. You know this is a function. So you can do whatever you want with a function. You can even do better than that. You can do, well, it's not better. You can do like different. You can do function, and then you call it like get component, for example, get component. I will arrive to do that component. All right, this is a function, okay? What is doing this function? This function is returning another function. Again, I'm taking that part, I'm cropped it, I remove that, and I'm returning the function. So it's a function that returns a function, and the function is returning a JSX. And then I am calling get component here. That is exactly the same, because that function will be executed. That function will be evaluated so that it will replace that content by the return of that function. So it's the same if I cut that here and then paste it here like we had in the beginning. So you really have to understand that as well, all right? It's just pure JavaScript. We are not even talking about React here or JS6. It's just function or element that you are passing through another, and then you are using it in a different way. So you should not be afraid to see that. Just take it line after line and understand that, all right, you have a function that have a return, and the return, it's another function. Fine. So that I take that function and I replace it from here. It's exactly how this works. All right. So now we will do a little bit of a difference, is that we will still take back that function and then put it back here. So I am guessing that you are okay. Oops, I am doing the wrong thing here. So another way of writing it, it's the old way, let's say, even though you can see it a lot, and I will also export it. It's function like that and like this. That's also works. It's perfectly fine. And here I also put hello world with a 2 so that I'm exporting two different objects. Well, I mean, it's function, but in JavaScript everything is object, but whatever. Two different function. And here I can say, all right, I don't want to import app. I want to import app2. And then I want to use this app2 here instead. Just by doing this, you see that I have hello world 2. It's fine. You can do that. All right. Basically, the two functions are available. So I can do app and app2. So I have both function, and I have here. You remember here, it's JS6. What is JS6? It's look like HTML. So I can do that. I can do div and say hi, all right? By doing this, if I come back here, you see just hi. I'll put it bigger as well. I see hi here. But then what I can do, I can say, all right, let's do app, and let's do app2 as well. I can do that. It's fine. Here, I have my both components. All right? So you can really play with whatever you want. So of course, no, I won't do that because like I said, it's a good practice to put only one component by file, just again, because a lot of things we already discussed about maintainability and all the things like that to be a good developer, let's say. So I will keep just app. I will come back here. Then I will remove that. You can see that we have to. I will also do something else, by the way, just for you to see it's possible. Like it's here. I will do maybe 3, whatever. And then I can omit the return because the new arrow function is not possible here, but it's possible with the arrow function. If you are only returning something without doing any other things, other operation inside the function, you can omit the return and as well as the brackets. So I can write it like this. And I will write like so. It's definitely fine as well because it's a function returning only an element. It's fine. So you have 3 ways to writing it. Oops. And you have to be completely comfortable with that. Let's keep the first one, and maybe what I will do as well is to remove the return again, just to keep the code shorter as possible. All right, it should be fine. Okay, and if I can check back here, you see it's still working, it's perfect. So what I will try to do right now, basically, I will try to make another component, right? And the other component will be a text. So let's maybe here, and I will say, it will be a paragraph, for example, all right? That JS6. And you have these RFC, there are some stuff to pre-build for you, stuff, it's really cool. You see here, it's an export default, but I don't want that. First, I don't need to import React in the latest version. I don't want to export by default, and I want to export a variable const with an arrow function syntax, which is I prefer. And now I have that, and you can see already something a little bit different from that one. There are parentheses just after the return. It's really important for you because sometimes I remember you put some brackets and sometimes parentheses and you don't know why you have to put that. It's basically because it's on multi-line. If I am just writing that on a single line like this, you can omit. You see that my character, my linter, already removed them for me because you don't need it if it's a single line. But if I want to write the code on a multi-line, for example, I replace that by a lot of text like this, and I save it, you will see that my editor will automatically add a bracket because my code is on multi-lines. But it's exactly the same thing, all right? It's just because it's on multi-line, so JavaScript have to understand where is the start and where is the end. That's it. Again, here, I only return something, so I can remove the brackets and I can remove the return, and I just return the bracket with my element. It's perfectly fine, okay? If I want to use it, I have to go back in my app, and then before exporting my constant, which is a function, I will import my paragraph, which is a part of it, a paragraph like this, from, and then it's on the same level. Oops, I do something wrong. Yeah, I can allow, that's fine. It's like this paragraph. And then if I want to use it, I can just go here, remove all of that, and then just paste my paragraph like this. You see, it also adds some parentheses. Okay? So that is the basic syntax. Try to do again and again just by yourself, all right? So that you get used to that syntax and you don't have any problem anymore with just your eyes have to get used to that syntax, and it will take a little bit of time. But when you get some exercise, it will be easy in some days. Don't worry. Okay, next thing is that the other the other syntax, which is the bracket, and then you sometimes put brackets and you don't know why you have to put brackets. Here you are passing what we call hard-coded value. Hard-coded value, it means that it's not dynamic. It's just elements that it will always be the same. But if you want to make something dynamic, for example, an array of for a list or something like here, if you want to put a list like that, and then it was not like that. I'm sorry. What I would love to do is more. It's like this, an ordered list, and then inside a list, and then item 1, and then I can do like 2 and 3. So by doing this, it's still hard coded, but I want to make that dynamic. So if I want to make that dynamic, for example, instead of having that, I will that the data here should be from somewhere else, and maybe it could be from a constant somewhere. I have like, for example, like dummy name. I put it in uppercase with an underscore because it's something that you will see often when you are hard coding some value. You can definitely just use that syntax so it's clear it's a constant. And then here, for example, it will be like John Doe, quite famous name for a dummy name. And then I will say I want to use that variable in here. That specific moment, it will be dynamic. So because it's dynamic, you need not just to put the variable like that. That will be a plain text if I am doing this, and then you look at the result, you see it's dummy name. So if you want to have the real data, you need to say to JavaScript that, oh, this is not just a data like that. It's something that you have to evaluate. You need to first execute that part of the code. So you cannot just put like that. You need to say, all right, I will put some brackets, and everything inside that bracket should be executed before getting the result. And I just put a variable, so I will just put a variable. And again, you see John Doe, but it could be anything else. Since it's in between those brackets, it can be everything. So for example, I can say plus and hey, say hey. You see, he just add heyo at the end of John Doe, because he first evaluated that part and then he injected. You have to also understand that, so when you see bracket, you're not afraid anymore. All right, let's say now you have 3 different things, and maybe what you want is like an array. You know that because we did it together. So let's say the students, all right, or let's just say A, because I want to disturb with anything. Then here I will just maybe put a boolean, if I can write it correctly, because apparently I'm struggling. False, and then false again. All right, so I have an array with 3 elements, and then I will say I want each time, if we already do that together, not if I lie, we already did that together. So I will just remove all of that. And since I want to put a content which is dynamic, I will put brackets. Otherwise I won't. But here it's dynamic because I will map through all these elements. So I will have A, but if I just do A like that, it will say, hey, come on, I cannot use it. So there is an error somewhere here. Just say, yeah, I cannot use it. Like, you just put an array with a lot of things inside. Actually, he tried to do stuff because he tried to put them together, but then it's just Boolean, and when you render Boolean, it's nothing. If I just convert everything, oops, not like that. If I convert everything by text, come on, like this, you see that it will render them like that. But it's not what we want, so in any case, I'm just going back to my Boolean value, and then I want to map. So I will map so that I will render a lot of things. I saw again that you were struggling about what you have to write. Sometimes you put some brackets again inside, sometimes outside, you don't know exactly why. Remember, this is a pure JavaScript things. You have map because A, it's an array. And on any array, you have some method already available for you in JavaScript. It's already natively available. So before, instead of just putting stuff in there, I would like to make sure you understand that map, it's a method. A method is a function, but a function inside an object. That was, I said, method. And that's a method that you have to call it, and you have to give something to that. You can give a text or whatever you want, but the function is expecting something else. When you put my mouse on it, you see that here, the map function is, the first argument is expecting a callback function. And then the callback function have this specific signature, which is a function that will receive 3 values. First one, it's a Boolean, apparently. Then an index, it's a number, it's an array, and then the last one, an array, it's an array of Boolean. So why he put Boolean is basically because he knows the array, and the array is like that one, and he knows as well that this is Boolean inside. If I change everything by string here, and then I'm doing that again, you will see string now, because you just understand it's string, but you don't really have to care about that. We just need to pass a function. So here we cannot pass a string. I need to pass a function. But then I won't write the function here, otherwise you will be maybe confused. So let's create another function. All right, I will write in that way for now. And let's say B. Okay. And that function need to return something, because the map, it's a function that will return a new array, let's say, and the new array will have each value something, and you know what React is doing when you give him an array, it just put them all after another like that. So instead of putting all the array like that, and also basically just for showing you a little bit what happened, instead of putting that, I will say, you know what, I will put JS6 and say, hey, and I will also do that here. Hi. And I don't know why this is not working. And ho. You see? So I'm just putting some JSX inside, and look at that. If you are inspecting it, he just put 3 HTML because he just put them together, one after the other. It's exactly what happened when I will do a map here. I will do a map, and then the map is returning. You have to look at the documentation, but the return value is not explaining here. Yes, it is. And return an array that contains the result. So that for every element present in here, it will just return. Here, since A is an array of JSX element, you can see that in green now, I can just say, all right, A.map, and then I will have an element. My element I will call E, for example, and then I will return E, because it's already JSX, so I don't need to do anything. By doing this, it's still the same. If I am removing an element over here, it's removing an element over here. So it's really clear, all right? But then now, it's mostly not the case. You don't really get the data as JSX. You get the data as string, as object, as whatever, but it's quite rare that you have that. But let's keep in mind that you can have, it's technically possible, right? So since you have that, and here you will have just text, you see we'll do exactly the same thing as before. If you want, you can define that it will return JSX as well. But then, if you want to put something inside that will be dynamic, what you have to do, but now you know, if it's dynamic, I will put brackets, and then I will say E, which is text. And now it's the same result as before. But what I want to do is to also use that function. So instead of having that specific function, and also, by the way, that function can be written like this, an anonymous function, okay? That's definitely the same. So here the problem is that I cannot return like this. So I need to put bracket. I need to do return, and I need to return that specific element like that. And I can do something like this. That's also working, but then I will just move the function inside here. So I will just move the return inside my B function, and I will remove all of that function. And inside the map, I will just put B, which is my function here. I just forgot something, that the function you are passing inside here will get the value, which is the E I want to print here. And it's working exactly the same way. You can write that function in here. You can write that function inside that function. Just be careful that if you do that, you need to put back the bracket and you need to put back the return keyword, and that works as well. All right, you can also move all of that data inside that function. We will see the difference why it could be better outside of inside later, but for now, just keep in mind, you can do whatever you want. That's really important. This, for example, it could be a variable as well. But in that case here, since we need dynamic value, we won't. But imagine that you want to pass also span, maybe with like end of line, I don't know, whatever. It's really stupid, look at that. You just put end of line everywhere. What you can say, all right, you know what, this, I will remove it. I will create another variable here, and I will create like end of line. I put some j6 in there. I took that variable and I just added here. You said also have to put brackets because it's dynamic. It's always the same. And then it's look the same. So you can do everything you want, really everything. I won't go further now. Just try to understand how you can manipulate the data in React. Try to make some stuff on your own, play with it, make it fun, make it viable, make it function, try to make as much as you want and try to replicate some pages so that next class we can try to work on all of that. All right, see you guys.